Welcome back. Veteran pro-democracy activist Martin Lee admitted today his proposal that approved of the Beijing-required pre-selection process for future chief executive candidates was against democratic principles. He retracted it yesterday.
I was tired, Martin Lee said. The founding chairman of the Democratic Party said on a radio show today that after years of fighting for universal suffrage, he just wanted to see some kind of a breakthrough. That's why he had put out a proposal that would see a nomination committee select up to 5 candidates for the 2017 chief executive election. Beijing has promised universal suffrage for that election. The central government has been underlying the requirement of having such a committee as stated in the Basic Law. But critics say any pre-selection process or screening would go against the principles of universal suffrage. Lee said he'd wanted to be pragmatic when he suggested his formula, because at least it would give the pan-democrats a chance to get their foot in the door. But he decided to retract it shortly afterwards because he said he wants to stand firm over what he describes as genuine democracy. Lee also pointed out that pan-democratic candidates have received greater support among voters than their pro-establishment rivals in LegCo, even though under the city's voting system they don't become a majority in the chamber. So he foresees a lot of blank ballots when the people are given a vote to choose among CE candidates they don't really like. He said in that case, the chosen candidate won't have the public's recognition, and that's something Beijing would have to face.
2 buildings in Sam Shui Po could get a facelift under a redevelopment scheme run by the Urban Renewal Authority. As Stephanie Wong reports, the projects have a price tag of some $2.3 billion and can generate 270 flats.
Urban Renewal Authority staff descended upon the 2 buildings in Sam Shui Po to determine the actual number of families affected by redevelopment. One building on Tung Chau Street spans some 1,600 square meters and has more than 300 households. Some of them live in homes built on its rooftop. Mr. Wong bought this spot in 2009 for $15,000, but an ownership dispute means that he might not be compensated. Those who live on the roof here at the project on Tung Chau Street may be eligible for special assistance from the URA, but some say it'll be barely enough to cover the cost of rent elsewhere. Mr. Wong said even if he's eligible for the assistance, the amount he's expected to receive will only be enough for a year's rent, so he'd rather stay put unless he can get a public housing flat. A point that was stressed by a group that has been helping the residents.
If they want to move out from here, they already cost them like $10,000 or even more. What the residents think they want to get is really public rental housing with a stable rent, and they don't need to worry about being evicted or being redevelopment.
Others, like Mr. Ng, said it's time to redevelop his building. The pipes burst twice this month, and it cost several $1,000s to repair them. It was such a headache for the owners. The project, if it gets the go-ahead, is expected to produce around 190 flats and cost some $1.7 billion. The other scheme, involving a building on Kowloon Road, will cost $600 million. In announcing the 2 demand-led projects today, the URA acknowledged the challenges that rooftop residents face and stressed it's sincere about offering assistance.
For example, for a family household of 3 to 4 family members, we would offer about $40,000 to $50,000 as some sort of a special allowance to help them to face the immediate hardship. We have a good intention.
Stephanie Wong, TVB News.
Firefighters carried out tests at an Apley Chow estate today following yesterday's blaze, which left 7 people injured. Investigators want to find out why fire hydrants failed to work properly at the time.
Firefighters returned to the scene at South Horizons to carry out a series of tests, checking the water pressure from the ground and up the 42-story building, as well as the water pump system. Earlier, Assistant Director of Fire Services Jones Yeung spoke on a radio show about yesterday's fire, which left 7 people injured, including 2 who suffered serious burns. It took firefighters 3 hours to put out the blaze, which broke out in a 17th floor apartment of Yilai Court. Firefighters had to draw water from the ground floor after they discovered the hydrants in the building didn't have enough pressure to douse the fire. Yeung said the fire services department is now following up on the system failure and will conduct further investigations. He also refuted claims that firefighters arrived late, saying the estate's emergency passageways were all clear and on par with fire safety regulations. The estate has put up notices informing residents that contractors will be inspecting the building's water, power and gas supply, as well as its lifts, to see if they were affected by the fire.
Right, Chris, over to you for sports.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dee. And we begin with golf, and Spain's Sergio Garcia and Australia's Mark Leishman share top spot at the end of round one of the US Masters in Augusta. World number one Tiger Woods is 4 shots behind the leaders, but still within striking distance to win his 5th green jacket. Tony Sabine reports.
The first major of the season is in full swing at Augusta. And all eyes are on Tiger Woods, who's looking to win his 5th Masters title. The world number one made a steady start with a solid round of 2 under 70. Tiger said the course is always a challenge for players.
We have to be very patient, especially with the greens as soft as they were and as slow as they were. It'll bait you into firing at some flags, and got to be very disciplined.
Mark Leishman's excellent first round meant he was the man to catch as he hit a 6 under par 66. The Australian was delighted, but knows there's still plenty of golf to play.
Yeah, it was awesome. But I never really got ahead of myself because I know that this course can bite you pretty quickly.
Leishman shares first place on the leaderboard with Sergio Garcia, who also finished the round at 6 under. Well, number 2, Rory McIlroy had a fair start, finishing with an even par score of 72. Tony Sabine, TVB News.
Football now. It's Spain against Germany in the Champions League semi-final. Barcelona will play last year's finalists Bayern Munich, while Borussia Dortmund take on Real Madrid. And in Europe's second-tier cup competition, the Europa League, Chelsea survived a fight back from Rubin Kazan to reach the last 4. The Blues lost 3-2 away to the Russians, but won the tie 5-4 on aggregate. They'll next play Swiss side FC Basel, who survived a 2-2 home draw against Tottenham. With the tie level at 4-4 on aggregate, it went to penalties. The Swiss won the shootout 4-1. Newcastle also went out after they drew at home against Benfica. Also through to the last 4 are Turkish side Fenerbahce.
And finally for tonight, a story about Mexicans and their love of salt and how authorities are trying to persuade Mexico City residents to hold the salt. Current estimates show Mexicans eat nearly 3 times the recommended daily amount of salt. As a consequence, 2/3 of Mexican adults are obese, and diabetes and hypertension are reaching epidemic proportions. In a campaign to help Mexicans cut back, the government has asked restaurants to provide salt shakers only if guests ask for them. But pushing a saltless diet could be an uphill battle, as Mexicans regularly consume 11,000 milligrams of salt every day. And that's made me hungry.
And that's a lot of salt.
That's the news for tonight. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.